map layout with those walls that you could utilize for defensive purposes, but kind of instead get himself boxed in a little bit. Can't really push up into Midas because he just sits around outside then and shells anything. That Wraith really coming in handy as a spotter, letting him not use any com sets on that, just gets a Wraith in there. Still producing a massive amount of tanks, going to get 5 factories going. Still think really on 3 or 4 factories, getting his third base up and getting some dropships going. Still don't see Midas producing any more of those. Might want to start working on that as soon as he can. Get some Goliaths up alongside. It seems like we are going to see a tank Goliath dropship type TVT. As opposed to early battle cruisers. And honestly, say what you want about TVTs, but I honestly feel tanks, Goliaths, and dropships are a lot more interesting than just both players going for battle cruisers within the first 15-20 minutes of the game, and the rest 20-30 minutes of the game are just battle cruisers flying around and not doing much of anything. But at the very least, the way the game is set up like this, it's a bit more of a chess match, more strategy involved. You got to be at the right place at the right time. You got to move your pieces at the right time. Sacrifice a pawn here to pick off a rook there. Sacrifice a pawn here, pick off a knight there. You know, all the way until you can basically get a GG out of the other guy. So let's see. Really does seem to be reinforcing a little bit up the middle, just trying to push up. But the way the game is setting itself to be, it does look like both players just going to take their equal sides of the map. Midas getting a bunch of dropships going, 4 at the moment. He wasn't producing for a little short while there, it seemed, but he's definitely getting his dropship fleet out now. Does seem to be moving a CV to the upper left hand beyond the eggs. Going to go pick that up for himself. Midas, meanwhile, was Midas picking up the upper left hand for himself and really picking up the 3 o'clock beyond the eggs secondary. Finally working on his 4th base himself, but Midas going to try to stay at base ahead, try to stay ahead in upgrades, although I do think really actually gets his upgrades. Okay, doesn't have his upgrades up yet, but I assume he's going to be working on those soon enough as well. Turrets going up for Midas as well, wants to make sure that those locations don't get dropped, or at least if they do get dropped, there's at least a threat of possibly losing a dropship as you do that. And really planning turret right outside the upper left hand in anticipation. Saw those dropships coming by, knows that they might use that position, so wants to get more forces up, just getting more missile turrets down here at the 6. Dropship's also going to drop some forces. I'm not quite sure with Midas. Midas might be the dropship, might beat the turrets if he goes right now, but it does seem to be backing off. Sees the position, got spotted. Not quite sure, seems to be backing off. Might get caught by a turret there. If he flies straight up here through to that 2 o'clock position, there was a turret there waiting. Might have to drop down and pick that off. Gonna definitely pick off the pesky SCV bunch of tanks in there. Just going to go down, pick off the turret so it doesn't take any damage. Just a little bit of slowdown to the maneuverability of Midas, and just every little advantage to really is good. He knows that he will stop there for a second. Actually moving in close through those eggs to the upper left hand to threaten Midas. Midas moving around with his dropship, but none of his forces are in those. Keeping his forces close to the 3. Really, Mio just going to go bypass the eggs, going to go and force a float on that command center. Midas moving... does have his dropship in the air, but doesn't really seem to have anything inside of that. Midas not meanwhile moving his command center up, so might actually lose that. More dropships are being produced by all time. Really seems to be behind in dropships. Working a lot of Goliaths from 3 factories, and I think that we had 3 on tanks. Midas, oh my lordy, he's gonna add in 2 more starports. He's gonna work on a lot of the wraiths, hoping to get those dropships out of the sky. Of course, if you do manage to completely deny maneuverability to your opponent, you're going to be in a good position, because moving, when you have this kind of TVT, moving across the ground just doesn't give you the maneuverability you need. You just have to slow push. That means that your opponent will know you're on, most likely anyway, will know you're on the way before you even get there, and will be able to get himself into a good position to counter you once you do that. So Midas has lost the upper left, has a lot of forces close to that base at the 3, but has lost the upper left, so he's going to be in a little trouble there. Has meanwhile taken the 2 o'clock position for himself, actually flying out with some of his dropships. Might be picking up the inside 8 o'clock position, gonna go close to that 2 for himself and make sure deny that anything happens there. He's going to start sieging on those dropships from range with some scans. Seems to have a fairly large fleet of dropships out there. Thinking of dropping. He already sieged some of those turrets. Does have enough to drop that, though. I'm not too sure. Females! Oh my god! And meanwhile, really maneuvering himself up to the upper left-hand position, probably to siege off there. And doing pretty much the same thing. Got to start sieging at turrets just to drop on that secondary. Didn't see any drop from Midas there. Also has, right now, Midas Wraiths coming into this position. Not that many Goliaths right at the front. Is going to be able to cloaking them up. Dropships, all one dropship going down. No more dropships go down. So the scan actually timely, and their Wraiths not doing much of anything. Still a few of them in there, just attacking the ground force. Only picked off one dropship. Managed to do that, but as soon as that, I think he actually started focusing on the ground forces. Really, Midas in position to try to pick this off, losing most of his Wraiths. Just going to plant those tanks on the high ground and start sieging the low ground. Yeah, look at him go. Look at him go. Also using his Wraith there as a spotter as he did before. Moving some of his forces close to the ground just to continue countering really here. Let's see here, really 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bases. Minus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as well. But he's lost one base. So that's a little bit of damage there done. 4 starports, really actually maneuvering himself up a little bit, picking off some of those tanks in his way, doing a good job. Also picking off the barracks. We're going to see whether that's actually a delay for Midas, although that's a slight loss of resources, having to rebuild that. Both players at weapons 1. Probably not going to be seeing any upgrades beyond weapons 2. The upgrades in TVT beyond weapons 2, the upgrades only really help the Goliaths rather than the tanks. Gonna see Midas go for a huge up. A lot of turrets in position. Some tanks as well. Gonna drop beyond the reach of some of those far turrets. Has those tanks coming in. 4 tanks in there. Gonna pick off some SCVs out of the range of the tanks. And just gonna try to pick SCVs coming in close, but he's picking all of them off. Losing 2 tanks though to the combination of siege. Oh no! To friendly fire. SCVs coming in. Didn't see those tanks from the distance. Wondering how the hell were the SCVs killing those tanks so quickly, but it was actually friendly fire. At those SCVs to the tanks. So Midas actually lost 4 tanks due to his own friendly fire, but did pick off a lot of his SCVs, so some mining denied. Wraiths coming in close. We're going to see if we actually can try to continue denying this. Is that engineer actually glitched out? Okay, I thought it was glitched out. I was like, what? But just sitting there doing the thing. Midas hasn't really utilized his Wraiths to their optimum capacity. Has to force himself to keep them away from the turrets. Can't really get too close to some of those tanks. But you've still been doing a good job of utilizing them as spotters. Hasn't picked off as many dropships as he would have wanted. Now we're going to see the first person view of Midas as he tries to continue dropping this location. Tanks come down, sieging up right now. Man, love looking at a micro. Really, meanwhile, has reinforcements coming in. A lot of Goliaths at the front. Midas forced to keep his Wraiths alive at range. Losing a few dropships there as well. Going to lose all those tanks. Might keep those Wraiths alive if he manages to. Macro hitting in, and you see a little bit of surplus coming in now on the minerals and just the gas. The gas so important. On the opposite, the absolute opposite for really actually has a surplus of gas and actually missing out on some minerals. Trying to counter out those Wraiths by having Goliaths in position. Still being forced to lose some of this dropship, but does come here, finally clean up the mess at his 3 o'clock. And Midas giving him a little bit of trouble, it seems. But let's see, both players still sticking onto 5, and Midas desperate to get some more gas flow going because he's really utilizing a lot of gas, producing a lot of tanks, and still producing dropships and still producing Wraiths. While on the opposite side, we don't see any Wraiths from Real. He doesn't have as much gas flow going out, just tanks, and dropships. His main gas outflow. I don't know. I forget. There are specific words for that, but after work and working out and yada yada, my brain's kind of like an egg that's been shattered. It's kind of, but instead of you actually frying, it's kind of just being allowed to just sit there on the cold frying pan, completely worthless to the world. Something like that. I have a feeling I just imagined something very disgusting in my head and unfortunately shared it with you. I'm sorry if that is indeed the case. Midas, meanwhile, was starting to clear up the north side up a bit. Does seem to want to go for that upper left-hand base yet again beyond those eggs. Really might just know about that. Meanwhile, picking up a new base. Was that a base on the inside 9? Wow. Audacious. Very close to Midas there. He is putting down turrets, picking up the base there at the upper left-hand. Does have tanks in position. Gonna start shelling away. Gonna force a float of that command, so has forces coming in close. A lot of tanks. No Goliaths to see to support, but I assume there's gonna be dropships coming close. I'm wondering how many dropships he actually lost. I assume he's still producing those, but he's lost a lot of dropships. Yeah, he's still producing those, but he did lose a few dropships while going for those drops. Still producing a heavy amount of Wraiths. Now, these Wraiths could make him or break him in this game, and I'm really excited how he does, because this is like, usually you see Goliaths, tanks, dropships. You might see a Wraith or two just kind of acting as spot or stuff like that, but most part is just Wraiths. But really excited to see what Midas. Midas seems to have forgotten about. Excuse me, God. Midas seems to have forgotten about these forces of 9, so he's getting dropped right now and getting killed. Has I think about losing a lot of